What is going on, everybody? Let me know if you can hear me. This is very impromptu. Definitely not the plan today. But let me know if you can hear me all right, if you can see the screen okay, and then we will get started. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Definitely potent day on tap today. Was not planning on doing a video today. This morning it kind of looked a little bit wishy-washy. Didn't seem all that ripe for a video. And started to see some things through the morning that have uptrended a bit. So I wanted to at least get some content out. Didn't think I had time to actually record a video and then take the time to upload it after that. By that time, it'd be, after 1, maybe closer to 2 o'clock, and the event would already be underway. So I thought, let's go ahead and do a live stream. So this is going to be very impromptu. Don't expect this every time. If this goes well, I'll certainly consider doing some more live streams in the future. The reason I haven't done live streams is just because I'm out chasing most of the time during the spring, which is when the live streams are needed the most. So I didn't really want to start something that I wouldn't be able to stick to. But I think for today, the live stream is going to be warranted. So let's go ahead and dive right in right now. If you all have any questions, I've got the chat up here. I'll be watching that. Thanks for everyone for the nice comments so far. And if you have questions, just shout them out in the chat, and I will try to get to them as we go along. All right, so we have now an enhanced risk upgrade, level 3 out of 5, up there in northeast Oklahoma into northwest Arkansas. So I'll give you a little bit of a closer look here on the zoomed in view. So that is the orange area here, a level 3 out of 5 there. So that's going to be basically from Muskogee, Oklahoma, eastward into northwest Arkansas toward Interstate 49, I-40, so Fort Smith, Ozarks, Fayetteville, up toward Bentonville, Tahlequah. You are all under the gun for that level 3 out of 5 risk today. Thank you, Jason, for the super chat. Much appreciated. So that is our risk for today. We have the main driving factor for that upgrade to enhanced was the higher confidence in a tornado threat. The yellow stippled region there is a 10% hatched area, which coincides with the enhanced risk. So the threat for a few tornadoes, a couple of which could be strong, are going to be maximized in that yellow stippled region you see there. Other threats include large hail and damaging winds, but the main threat today going to be tornadic activity in that enhanced risk area. Let me zoom out a little bit and show you the overall risk there. We have a big slight risk from southern Missouri into basically the eastern half of Oklahoma, far northwest or northeast Texas, and much of Arkansas, with the main focus there in the enhanced risk area. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of what's been going on this morning. So here is our radar data right now, and let me actually switch sectors real quick to the Arkansas sector. So we've had quite a bit of convection ongoing this morning up here across northwest Arkansas, northeast Oklahoma. That is going to continue to move off to the east. We may see a little bit of reinvigoration of this convection over the next couple of hours. You see it's still fairly strong across this corridor, but it's going to quickly move off to the east, and behind it we're going to see the environment take shape for some significant severe weather. Thanks, James, for the super chat. Much appreciated. So that is the what's going on right now. What this complex has done is it's sent out an outflow boundary, and you can kind of see that where the differential heating boundary is setting up. You see all the cloud cover here with the storms up to the north, and then down to the south, the kind of boundary between the clouds, the cloudy air mass to the north and the clear skies to the south. That is our outflow boundary right now, and you can really see it on surface observations. Let me refresh that real quick and zoom in here for you to the northwest Arkansas sector. So there you go. There is our outflow boundary. You see southerly winds there right at Fort Smith into Arkansas, with much more easterly or southeasterly winds to the north. So our boundary sitting kind of right in here right now, maybe just to the northeast of the Tulsa, Oklahoma area, down toward just north of Tahlequah through Fayetteville, and then just south of the Harrison, Arkansas area. So our boundary sitting right there. It is pretty much stationary at this point. And so that is going to be a major factor for today. thank you for the super chat. Hail yeah, bro. I like that username. But so there's going to be our outflow boundary for today. If we go back to the zoomed out view here real quick, you'll see some other features that are going to be of note today. A little bit of a surface low that has developed here across northern Oklahoma. You see the counterclockwise curvature of the winds there around that surface low. A little bit of a weak cold front, it looks like, down to the south. Not a huge temperature gradient here, but maybe some sort of a frontal zone. Oh, probably right in there per se. A little bit of a cold front stretching all the way down into Texas. That's going to sweep off to the east as the surface low continues to move off to the east today as well, kind of following that outflow boundary. So that low is going to move off to the east, that outflow boundary going to kind of sit there in far northwest Arkansas, northeast Oklahoma, and right out ahead of that surface low and along and just south of that outflow boundary is going to be our most favored corridor for supercell initiation with that all hazards threat. So let's go ahead and take a look at the bigger picture here. So this is going to be our 500 millibar map right now. You can see that ongoing convection in Missouri, northern Arkansas, kind of affecting this little bit of a, what appears to be a convectively enhanced little speed maximum in the 500 millibar flow there. That's going to kind of stay put through much of the day today. So we'll have some enhanced westerly flow aloft ahead of this nice, very positively tilted trough out across kind of the Four Corners region up into Colorado. That's going to start swinging through off to the southeast and east today, but we're going to be kind of ahead of that, mostly impacted by this little bit of convectively enhanced flow aloft. So that is the 500 millibar map. Let's go ahead and take a look at 700 millibars. Little bit of a short wave in there, it appears. Maybe a little bit of one there from Missouri down into north and east Texas. That may be a little bit of assistance for us today as well. But not a ton of synoptic forcing for ascent today. Not a real deep digging trough. Fairly subtle 500 millibar flow. But it is enough, and we do have enough forcing to initiate storms today, and really that surface low is going to help us out quite a bit. Here is where that surface low is. I'll zoom into our southern plains sector, and you can see it's right there. Northern Oklahoma, that kind of counterclockwise flow around that surface low with a closed contour there. It is weak, certainly not a surface low that is intense by any means, but still a surface low is there. That's going to lead to be a main player in our severe threat today. Kind of that warm front effective outflow boundary draped right in there, and that's going to be our main zone to watch for the most intense supercell development later on in this event. All right, here is some morning sounding data. This is the Norman sounding from this morning, and this is very impressive for late September. This is not something you see all that often out at Norman. Very, very steep lapse rates aloft here at Norman, 8.5 degrees Celsius per kilometer in that layer between about 750 and 600 millibars or so. And that is very impressive for September. Not often we see this kind of what appears to be an elevated mix layer out across this region in September. Already this morning had quite a bit of instability in place, about 1,200 joules per kilogram mixed layer cape above that stout capping inversion. Should not have any issues getting that cap to erode. And as that kind of the convectively enhanced vorticity maximum makes its way through, and we have that sunshine as we saw along and south of that outflow boundary, should get those temperatures up into the 80s and shouldn't have any issue getting storms to initiate in this environment. Here was the Little Rock sounding from this morning, much more attainable, convective temperature there at 91. So again, not much of a cap at Little Rock as well. Expecting storm initiation within the next couple of hours or so. I would say between about 1 and 2 might be our time to watch for initial convective development. B. Smith, thank you for the super chat. So that's what we've got going on. Wind profiles are going to be favorable for severe weather today. You see it at Norman this morning, pretty strong low-level shear at this point, and that is going to that was caused by a low-level jet that has been fairly persistent. As this surface low has kind of deepened, we've had a little bit of reflection in the low levels as well, and you see about a 30 knot or so low-level jet out ahead of that low-level cyclone from southern and eastern Oklahoma northeastward into northwest Arkansas. That is expected to kind of persist through the day. Not going to be overly strong, but it is going to be enough to warrant some stronger low-level shear with some of those storms that develop out there. So that is going to be our sounding data. Let's go ahead and take a look at our first, before we do that, let's just take a look at our environment south of the boundary, and you see temperature already at 90 at Fort Smith, 90 over 74. That is a very juicy environment. Temperatures in the 80s out here as well, with dew points in the 70s. Very rich moisture in this air mass, with temperatures warming up into the upper 80s, low 90s already. We saw our Little Rock convective temperature at 91, Fort Smith already at 90. So we are very close to convective initiation here. Again, I would say probably within the next hour to maybe 2 hours at most. But I suspect that this is a very favorable environment for significant severe weather. And again, not something you see in September all that often. All right, let's take a look at some model data to show you how some of these features are going to progress through the day. So here is our here's that positively tilted trough over the kind of Four Corners region this morning as of 12Z, and then that little convectively enhanced speed maximum there over Kansas and Oklahoma. You see it kind of shifts off to the east. We maintain ourselves within that influence of that little speed maximum there through the afternoon. Should be enough to increase deep layer shear to be favorable for supercells. And so we have enough forcing today, enough forcing to warrant storm initiation for this event. Let's go down to the surface. I'll zoom into our southern plains sector here. So you see that surface low. It is fairly weak as progged by the NAM here. You see kind of that closed contour right there at 15Z. We saw we're still maintaining that through the afternoon. The NAM not quite as robust with the surface low development. This is just a model depiction of the surface low. As the NAM has it, you see the center of the surface low might be up there toward the Chautauqua, Kansas area there in far southeast Kansas by about 21Z, 4 p.m. Central Time. And so, you would expect that the warm front / outflow boundary would lift a little bit farther off to the north. That might not be the case because we've had such robust convection persisting off to the north of that boundary through the morning. That might maintain its kind of stationary position there from northwest Arkansas into northeast Oklahoma. But it's something to watch as far as where that outflow boundary sets up, as that's going to be a very critical piece in this particular setup. So here we are by 0Z. The surface low moves off to the east. And you'll notice here a little bit, we start the day with nice southerly flow. Our surface obs certainly showed that as well. Nice southerly flow across Arkansas into eastern Oklahoma. But winds start to veer a little bit with time. As this surface low moves off to the northeast, watch these surface wind barbs here a little bit. You see they kind of veer a little bit to more south-southwesterly by 21Z, little bit of a westerly component to those winds. And then by 0Z, we continue to see that. The NAM actually has it nicely backed in here, perhaps south-southeasterly to do southerly flow. Some of our other models were showing a little bit more veered flow in the low levels, which would tend to decrease low-level shear overall and perhaps decrease the overall tornado threat with time. But the NAM here showing nicely backed flow, even going into the early evening hours. And then as the cold front comes through, we kind of squash things overall. As far as our moisture goes, plenty of that to go around as we saw, and it's going to be a very kind of untapped air mass along into the south of that boundary. Let's take a forecast sounding here. Take it from the Tahlequah, Oklahoma area at 21Z, so 4 p.m. Central Daylight Time, and this is going to be the environment we're working with. Very, very unstable environment. Mixed layer CAPE, about 3,500 joules per kilogram right there. That may be a little bit on the high side, but certainly wouldn't put it past this event today. In fact, let's go ahead and take a look at that. Already have mixed layer CAPE about 2,500 joules per kilogram or so all the way up into eastern Arkansas, and I would suspect that that is going to perhaps continue. You see about 3,000 there in 2 to 4 hours, so plenty of instability. This might be slightly overdone, but nonetheless very strong instability for a September event. Very fat CAPE as well. You see that profile is very thick instability profile, and lots of low-level instability as well. You see that lowest 3 kilometers or so, nice fat CAPE down in the low levels, about 150 joules per kilogram of 0 to 3 kilometer CAPE. So very strong low-level instability. We have that boundary to work with. We have the surface low. So we might have some surface vorticity that could aid in overall tornado genesis in those supercells, along with the stronger low-level shear. Initially, not a super impressive photograph, certainly more than capable of producing tornadic activity with almost 200 meters squared per second squared effective SRH. Nice curvature there in the low levels of the photograph. So this profile would certainly favor supercells with all hazards. Now, you do see it's a little bit saturated here as we go up above that little remnant sort of warm nose, if you will. A little bit of dry air there in the low levels, but overall, fairly saturated profile above about 750 millibars or so. So that could lead to fairly moist storms. You see that PWatt value, precipitable water, above 2 inches. That is extremely, extremely moist. And that may mean that we're going to have a tendency toward more precipitation-loaded downdrafts and perhaps a tendency toward more high precipitation storm modes. But overall, this parameter space would certainly favor supercells with all hazards. Judy, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate that. So that is going to be at 21Z. We'll go on towards 0Z and take a look at the environment here. We'll take one kind of right north of Fort Smith as storms move off to the southeast and southeast today. And that environment certainly maintains itself through the afternoon. Strong instability both in the deep layer and in the low levels, about 3,500 joules per kilogram mixed layer CAPE, 130 joules per kilogram of 0 to 3 kilometer CAPE. With a nice looking hodograph, you see the NAM interestingly does back those winds just a little bit in the low levels, a little bit more southeasterly there, creating a little bit stronger low level shear with 260 meters square per second squared effective storm relative helicity. But again, very moist air mass, over 2-inch precipitable water values, strong instability. That may lead to some very water-loaded supercells today and very high precipitation storm modes. Of course, that's going to make it very difficult chasing. Already is going to be very difficult chasing with this kind of terrain. Let me just pull up Google Maps here real quick and show you this terrain. If you're not familiar with this terrain in northeast Oklahoma, northwest Arkansas, it is about some of the most difficult terrain you can ever experience. All that dark green there, that is the Ozark Mountains, the Ozark National Forest. They're very difficult terrain. You do have some clearings out in far northwest Arkansas, kind of west of Interstate 49 there, west of the Bella Vista, Bentonville, Springdale, Fayetteville line. You do have some openings there. And in northeast Oklahoma, there are some openings there along 412. But overall, it is a very difficult chase area for sure. And the fact that we're going to perhaps be dealing with more high precipitation supercells, that's going to only add to the danger today. So for those of you chasing today, it's going to be a very difficult chase, no doubt. But the environment certainly does favor tornadic supercells, perhaps significant with this kind of parameter space. So definitely just be mindful today. Chasing in the Ozarks is no joke. And the setup today certainly favors beastly sort of high precipitation supercells. So be very aware of that today. A couple things on maybe the storm mode here. So our outflow boundary, as we talked about, going to be kind of draped sort of out here from northwest Arkansas into northeast Oklahoma, something like that. Let's take a look at our shear vector orientation with respect to that. So surface low going to be kind of right in there, outflow boundary / warm front right in there, and our shear vectors you see are almost purely parallel to that outflow boundary. So that may mean that things are going to get a little bit messy fairly quickly, although I do expect a window for discrete supercells, fairly weak synoptic forcing overall, so that should favor at least an hour or two window of discrete supercells. And if we can get any supercells out ahead of the cold front, maybe to the south of the boundary on a confluence band. Of course, low-level wind shear is going to decrease to the south of the outflow boundary. Just to exemplify that here, I'll take a sounding a little bit farther to the south. So let's take a look at that. So you see still a favorable looking profile that would not quite as robust low-level shear as farther north along the boundary. I'm not sure I quite picked it along that first sounding along the boundary. So let's maybe take it, take one right there, kind of where winds are most backed, and we'll see sort of the largest potential kind of ceiling of the low-level shear. And there you go, right along the boundary, very strong low-level shear, and it's certainly going to be maximized along that outflow boundary. And then farther south, it does appear to be somewhat more of a favorable environment, a still favorable environment for all hazard supercells, but low-level shear is going to decrease with southern extent, and it should be more of a large hail and damaging wind risk with southern extent down into western and southwest Arkansas, southeast Oklahoma, northern and northeastern Texas. But overall, certainly an environment, especially along that outflow boundary ahead of the surface low, that would favor all hazard supercells with that significant tornado risk. So here is the recent HER run. Let's look at some cams here. So you see it's pretty well initialized, that ongoing complex there across Missouri into northern Arkansas. And then we go by about 20Z and I think that might be an hour or two late. But you see some fairly semi-discrete supercells developing in northeast Oklahoma, east of Tulsa, moving into that area between about Bentonville and I-40 near Fort Smith, which again is very difficult chase terrain, but still some semi-discrete supercells in there by 2021Z. That's 4 p.m. 5 p.m. We maintain some semi-discrete nature for those supercells, and that would certainly maximize the tornado risk if we can maintain that sort of semi-discrete nature. But I think clustering will be a thing that happens fairly quickly, given that storms are going to sort of follow the outflow boundary. Shear vectors are going to be parallel to that outflow boundary. And so that may mean that we're going to see a little bit more of a clustered mode fairly quickly. You see later on additional storms develop in southeast Oklahoma down all the way into perhaps even west central Texas along the cold front, with again mainly a large hail and damaging wind risk with southern and southwest extent. Let's take a look at the WRF ARW model real quick here. So you see it's got that complex moving through during the afternoon, and then by late evening, which I think is far too late, it's got some discrete supercells to clusters developing near that surface low outflow boundary and then along the trailing cold front down to the south. So I think the ARW a little bit too late with its depiction, but overall it is a plausible depiction there. NSSL WRF. It's got a pretty good depiction of that ongoing convection, and then a very quick transition to more of a line and clustered mode there with those supercells. So the HER is definitely, I think, the ceiling for this event with more semi-discrete supercells. And then the NSSL WRF would be kind of the best case scenario for folks in this region, more of upscale growth that happens a little bit more quickly. And then that would lead to more of a damaging wind and maybe an embedded tornado risk, especially with any portions of the line that would follow the outflow boundary there. So all in all, a pretty potent setup. Certainly still need to kind of see how things play out, but we're definitely trending upward. Instability very strong in this setup for today. And certainly the parameter space does favor supercells with all severe hazards, including some significant tornado risk, especially in that enhanced risk area along the boundary. That's going to be key for today. Looking at those surface observations, where does that boundary end up? Looks pretty stationary for now, and I would suspect it's going to remain fairly stationary given that we have continuing thunderstorm activity to its north. But I think anywhere kind of in that corridor from just south of Harrison to Fayetteville up just northeast of Tulsa, maybe a little bit of northward movement. If we get those storms to move off to the east and nothing occurs to the north, we might get a little bit of northward movement closer to the Missouri-Arkansas border. But overall, I think it's going to end up somewhere in there. And that's going to be the main corridor for the most significant tornado risk, especially with any supercells that can track along that boundary. So again, all hazards on the table for today. Definitely looks like a potent event. Certainly interested to see how this one plays out. If you're in places like Muskogee, Tahlequah, Fayetteville, Bentonville, Springdale, Ozark, down toward I-40, Fort Smith, Sallisaw, you need to definitely be on alert for some significant supercells with that all hazards threat for today, including a threat for a strong tornado or two. So keep those weather radios handy today, and keep those eyes to the skies, and have multiple sources of receiving warnings, multiple ways of receiving warnings, and we'll get through this just fine. So that's going to wrap things up for this live stream. Let me know how you guys like it. I've been watching the comments. So thank you all for joining me today. Thank you for all of the comments. I really appreciate it. Let me know if you like this kind of thing, and we will potentially do some more of these in the future. For now, just this one live stream for now. Just wanted to get some content out before the event started today, given that we've seen an uptrend. But thank you all for your support. Definitely means the world to me. And thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.